welcome to the Business Unzipped podcast. This week I'm joined by Don Koulaouzos, who has more than 35 years of experience in international business and technology, and he also has commercial pilot's licenses in Australia and America. Today we're going to be talking all about business planning, the importance of planning and how it can help your business to succeed. So let's get into it.
Cool.
So, hi Don, how are you?
G'day, Jen. Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we're actually on a virtual one today because you are actually dialing in from Hungary.
Yep, from sunny Budapest, and it is sunny today.
Amazing. It's a bit grey here, actually. So I have brought you on here today because you're a business consultant, but you also mentor and help sort of young aspiring business people. So I want to talk about that as well later. Before we start, just tell me about yourself and your journey to sort of get to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I guess I could probably describe my career as very eclectic. And I typically describe it as a 2x2 matrix. So on one hand, I have a business consulting career, and I also have an interim management career that extended to both private and public sector. So all of those four quadrants I've had experience in. I guess that characterizes my 21st century career. But in the 20th century, I moved up the ranks and had the opportunity and I guess the pleasure of experiencing pretty much every role in a business except for HR, finance, and legal. But operations, marketing, sales, business development, pretty much the core of a business I've had my hands on. And of course, in the 21st century, I've had to do the lot. And whilst most of my career has been spent with large corporations, large governments with tens, hundreds, millions, and billions of pounds, dollars, sometimes euros, more recently, I've been involved in supporting and guiding startups through mentoring with budgets that are considerably smaller. And I can tell you this, Jem, I actually find this more rewarding. Nurturing and inspiring ambitious young and not so young entrepreneurs has probably been the best part of my career, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned different currencies. Is that because you have done your business sort of internationally?
Yeah. I've probably done, well, I stopped counting the number of countries I've done business in when I reached 30. So what I've done since then, I don't know. And I'm highly tuned into the sensitivities of different cultures. I guess I have to. I'm building up a presence here in Eastern Europe. And there are a lot of traps when you're doing international business. And surprisingly, the biggest traps come from the cultures that are close to you. I remember when I was headhunted to move to the UK, I stepped on a couple of cultural landmines by calling trousers pants and a few other quirks of the language, and I could probably share a few transatlantic anecdotes too with the United States, but we'll save that for another day.
Amazing. I want to get into business planning. That's what I want to talk about today. So you are highly skilled and know everything there is about business plans.
Wow, you're setting me up there, Jen.
Yeah, expectations are high.
Yeah, and look, I'm shy of a couple of words. And I think my advice to anybody is be shy of anyone that says they're an expert. There are very few experts on the planet, unless you're a biologist looking at the breeding habits of three-toed frogs in the Himalayas. But especially in business and technology, there are a lot of moving parts. But yes, I can say I've got a lot of experience in this. And I'm glad you brought up business planning because I think it's an important part of the entrepreneur journey that is often neglected or possibly not really understood. Many startups, many entrepreneurs think business planning is just for big corporations, large budgets, and certainly it is. But I think it is advisable for startups to do a business plan. And people often think, well, it sounds intimidating. What is a business plan? And I think the key word is plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply a document that describes the activities that your business intends to undertake and how it's going to achieve its goals. That's probably the simplest description. Use a search engine, you'll come up with hundreds of thousands of different definitions, but they more or less cover the same territory.
Yeah. The finance bit is normally the scariest bit, isn't it? Looking at budgets.
It should be the scariest bit because it's a key factor in the success or otherwise of any business, and especially for startups.
Yeah.
And I think another way of characterizing business planning, it really addresses and answers the fundamental questions you should always ask, which is the who, what, where, why, and how of your business. And the document effectively expresses those factors in a concise format, in a structured format, so that it provides you with a guide to execute your business.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you sort of that visual end goal. So although it's never linear, you don't head straight towards it and it's all over the place, you've still got that focus of the end goal. It sets those objectives for you.
Mhm.
So do you think you need a business plan to run a successful business?
I'm going to surprise you with an unexpected answer, Jim. And the answer is no.
You're not going to say no.
Just did. And I won't retract it.
All
But
right, now I'm intrigued.
now there's the but. And the but is, sure, you could start a business without a business plan. And a lot of successful businesses do. However, there's an important statistic that you and certainly the listeners should be aware of, and that is 90%. This is a global statistic, by the way. 90% of startups fail in the first year. Now, that's not to discourage prospective entrepreneurs, people who are in business. It's really to give you a bit of a wake-up call that it's important to plan. It's important to plan for any endeavor, but especially for a business. So yes, you can run a business without a business plan, but to mitigate the risk of not succeeding, and did you notice what I did there? I said the words not succeeding rather than fail.
Yes.
And to mitigate that risk is by having a plan, you premeditate all the characteristics, all the factors that will contribute to your success. So it's not a guarantee, but it certainly is a recipe for success that will help you on your journey. And getting into business is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Ask anybody that started. It's not an easy ride. It's not for everyone. And it involves a lot of sacrifice. And I think that's the other motivation behind doing a business plan is you are going to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Time, effort, funding, family, friends. You don't want to squander that. You want to make sure you're getting bang for buck. And the whole purpose of the plan really is to just set out the future ahead of you. In my eclectic career, one of the things that I got involved with was I was a commercial pilot for a number of years. And one of my early instructors gave me a bit of wisdom, the greybeard wisdom, which is you must always plan. And if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So there really is a lot of good reasons why you should plan and why you should have a business plan.
Do you think that it gets easier after the first year? Or do you think people give up? Do you think that contributes towards those statistics?
Yeah, I mean, there are about a dozen factors that contribute to the lack of success of a business, aka failure. And on that list is not having the right market fit.
Yeah.
A lot of people come up with great ideas and they think, hey, I've got a fantastic idea. I'm going to become a billionaire. And maybe you will, but ideas aren't enough for a successful business. Interestingly enough, if you talk to venture capital investors, the least interesting thing on their pre-qualification list is the idea. Even though the entrepreneur thinks, look, I've invented a new thing or I've come up with a new concept.
Yeah.
The whole world will bid a path to my door. Maybe. But it's the execution of the idea that really determines how successful or not that enterprise will be. And one of the contributing factors to that is who is doing it, and the who is more than just an individual in most cases, the team behind the concept. Funding, absolutely important, and you alluded to that before. Funds are critical, both money going in as well as money going out. And again,
Hmm.
your planning will prepare you to anticipate what those two moving parts will be. It just removes uncertainty. And you're going
Yeah.
to face enough uncertainty in business without missing out on an opportunity to limit and reduce the amount of uncertainty that you'll face in your business by doing the research, doing the planning, and setting out all the key elements that will contribute to your business success.
Yeah. I think as well, when you touched on making sacrifices, people often look at either freelance or self-employed or business owners and think, oh, they've got the luxury of time. And I think that is correct. But the initial process of running your own business, you have no time and you are dedicating your whole world to it. And I think I read something the other day that people that come out of employment to then run a business, they still have that employment mindset and they don't really get that sort of sheer determination and willing to sacrifice every, social outing for the first sort of 18 months to get it off the ground. Do you think that's fair?
Totally. And remind me if I forget to tell you about my um, discovery of stepping out of a comfortable corporate executive role and jumping into entrepreneur land. Although I've
Mm.
done it a few times, I guess I characterize myself as a serial entrepreneur. Um, but there are a lot of traps in making that step. But in terms of time, let me blend time with cash because both of those are finite. You will never have too much time or too much money. They're always in short supply.
Yeah.
And another reason for planning is it helps you use your time efficiently. And there are a number of things that I think entrepreneurs should be cognizant of, and that is preserve your time, preserve your cash. Another thing that I'll shove into this discussion is your health. It's not often expressed in business courses, definitely not in textbooks, and most entrepreneurs don't bring it up. But mind and body are not separate things. They're contained in the same membrane, your skin. And if you don't have a healthy mind and a healthy body, then that's going to have an impact on your business. So look after your nutrition, your well-being, and manage your time, and that will contribute to your business. Usually they're the first to suffer because you won't have the time to look after them. And then you end up with this negative spiral of you neglect yourself, you won't have the energy, you might make wrong decisions. So it's a holistic approach.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Thank you. So how long has Sky, so we can all see your logo in the background, how long has Sky Trek been going? Are you in that comfortable space now?
I would say I'm in a comfortable space. It's been running all throughout the 21st century. And I can say with, I guess, a bit of pride that throughout that time, I've not really had to chase any business. It's come to me, either through referrals or repeat business. I don't do any promotional advertising, which will betray some of the elements of my business plan, hence my earlier comment about do you need a business plan?
Mm.
Although I do have one for SkyTech, but I mainly did that to demonstrate to my mentees the purpose of having one.
Mm.
But yeah, I could say we're very much in a comfortable space now. There's a track record, and it's quite a broad track record, everything from programs up to £6 billion down to little startups with life savings
Yeah,
and everything in between.
amazing. So what made you want to venture off on your own?
I guess I always wanted to do that.
Mm.
And I worked in the corporate world for, well, the entire 20th century. And I took that as a apprenticeship. I wanted to acquire the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and I guess the connections, the network connections
Yeah.
that would entitle me to be a successful entrepreneur, successful business person. I'm not saying it's a prerequisite and it may not suit everyone, but certainly for my goals, my ambitions that I had at the time, it absolutely fulfilled that. And I can look back and refer back to that corporate experience and apply those to the engagements that I am involved in now, whether it's for large governments, large corporations, or even down to tiny little startups. But they are tailored and adapted to startups.
Mm.
And that almost encourages me to segue into my experience from jumping out of the corporate world and into one of my first big entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
And I think scale is the big challenge that you'll face. I walked out of an office where I had 3 PAs, huge marketing budget, double budget. Basically, everything was at my fingertips. A brand that everybody knew in the world. So I could just throw my business card down and bang, I'd get appointments. It was easy. And I made a lot of successes during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, starting up with a new enterprise, a brand that no one's ever heard of, a marketing budget that was smaller than what I would spend on one business trip, and figuring out, okay, now what? And it wasn't a simple exercise or arithmetic exercise of just dividing that budget by 10, 100, or 1,000. It doesn't scale that way. You need to approach things differently. And
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. Some things worked, for sure, and there were some transferable skills, transferable experiences from the corporate world that I found invaluable in entrepreneur land. Some of them, maybe not so. And certainly budgeting, proportionate budgeting was one of them,
Yeah.
and expectations. For example, the choice between advertising or public relations. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And there's no universal answer to that. In fact, often I get asked, can you please give me the template or the universal solution to a particular problem?
Yeah.
I don't have any good news there. And if anyone says, yep, use this template, use this process, guaranteed to work, I would start raising questions. There are just too many variables, too many dynamics in business and indeed in
Yeah.
life to describe things in black and white terms. It's just too simplistic, and it's lazy thinking. You need to adapt. There are shades of grey, and you need to apply the right solution that works for your particular circumstances at your particular place at a particular time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think actually you just said it, being able to adapt, particularly if it's your own idea, because you'll be so wedded to it, and so passionate about it. Then when other people start coming in and sort of offering advice to change it slightly, you've actually got to be amenable to that, because that could make or break.
Totally. And I think that's the other thing is jumping out of the corporate world into solopreneurship, or even if you've got a small team, you're not getting that diversity of views, the devil's advocacy that you need, the challenge. And you do get wrapped up in I guess, a sense of bias towards your business
Yeah.
and a reluctance to accept constructive criticism,
Mm.
constructive advice. And it's hard. It is hard. We all experience, and there are normal human emotions. And I think the most important thing regarding that is expect it, accept it, but don't be trapped by it.
Yeah. So would you think that, so obviously your experience in the corporate world helped you when you went out on your own. Do you think that that is good experience for everyone to sort
Aha,
of?
you're asking for a black and white answer. I can't give you a yes
No.
answer to that. No, it's different for everybody. It worked for me. It may not work for some of your viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
I guess because the business that I'm running is largely addressing corporate clients, then absolutely. I think if you're looking at the directions you want to go in, I think it's easier to go from corporate to SME, small to medium enterprise,
Yeah.
than the other way around. There's almost a rite of passage in the corporate world or in the government spheres. There's a level of bureaucracy. There's a whole vocabulary of business that experience exposes you to that is different to the solopreneur, um, the independent tradesperson. So yes, in that case, it worked for me, but it won't necessarily work for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads me on to the next point that I want to talk about is mentorship. So I think if you don't have that corporate experience and you're coming to it um, straight into running your own business or startup or wanting to do something on your own, I think it is invaluable to get a good mentor, that person that can give you that advice and help you grow. So, I mean, tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, you're baiting me for a positive answer there, given that I'm doing mentorship now. And just to give a bit of background for your viewers and listeners, I'm providing mentorship to a range of startups, mostly in the space business, but it's with the European Space Agency, through accelerators, through business incubators. Uh, this weekend, I'm going to be a mentor and a judge on a hackathon for startups who are looking to generate new ideas in space enterprise. And I think there is a role for mentors. Let me characterize it this way. When I first entered the corporate world, and I know I'm jumping back into that, but I'll bring it together. I moved up the ranks very rapidly. I don't think it was because I was particularly talented, but I think one of the winning recipes was that I listened to those who had trod that path before. You know, the experienced senior members of the team, and I was with a large group of trainees or ex-trainees moving into a new operational role.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't particularly interested in listening to the old guys. I took a different view. So I actually spent time with them during the breaks and said, you know, how do you do this? How do you do that? They were very keen to share their experience, their views. And I guess there's only two ways to gain experience. The real way to get experience is by experiencing it. You can
Yeah.
only get 20 years experience by doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Although I will come back to that expression a little bit later on. The other way of getting a leg up into that 20 years is by listening to someone who's done experience for 20 years. And here's the caution. There's a difference between someone that's done 20 years of experience, that has a breadth of experience, or someone that's done the same thing over and over again. In other words, 1 year's experience 20 times over.
I love that. I use that all the time because it's so true. When I hear, like, you know, I talk to someone and they're like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for like 30 years. And I'm like, okay, well then it makes no difference. You could have told me you've been doing it for 5 years. Like, you're doing the same thing over and over again. I love that.
Yeah, and look, it makes a difference. Uh, when I started off in the business world, longevity of employment, um, years of tenure was seen as a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people proudly hung up in their office their 10 years, 20 years, 25 years of
Yeah.
service certificate. Today, you look at CVs and think, whoa, what's wrong with you? Why haven't you moved on?
Mm.
Again, if you move every 6 months, that'll also raise other questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a variety of experience does help, because in the business world, despite all your plans, you will face situations that you haven't anticipated.
Mm.
The planning will help premeditate some of those, but it will never eliminate it. You will always be faced with surprises. The more of those situations that you've experienced in the past, the better you're able to attend to them. I'll give an anecdote back to my flight training. All pilots, and especially professional pilots, are trained to deal with emergencies. And the way they are trained to deal with emergencies is through simulation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I lost count of the number of times I was exposed to engine failure. At altitude, the instructor turns the engine off. This is right, over to you, land safely. And so you run through a mental process and you go through the drill and you calmly and safely control the aircraft and bring it into a safe landing. All commercial pilots do that. Airline pilots do it every 3 months, and commercial pilots every 6 months, private pilots every 12 months. The whole purpose of that is it de-risks and de-stresses the experience, because you've
Mm-hmm.
been there, done that, and you know exactly what to do. So the benefit of experience is by having those pre-planned processes in place that will allow you to deal with those emergencies. the emergencies of business.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great correlation, isn't it? You've got a checklist. That's actually a book, isn't it? The checklist. I've read that before, and it's based on pilots, and how they have sort of something for every emergency. They have a process that they follow, and that's the whole purpose of a business plan. When you deviate off and you come to risks, then you already know how to mitigate it because you planned for it. So, yeah, that's great.
Completely. And I guess you're also nudging me towards addressing strategy and tactics. Like your business plan is a strategic document. And a lot of people feel uncomfortable about the word strategy.
Gets thrown
What
around quite a lot.
it gets thrown around very lazily.
Mm,
And even amongst my consultant colleagues, a lot of people say, yes, this is strategy, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like an important word. It gives an air of knowledge and power, but a lot of people don't really understand it.
mm.
And it's often misused, especially by consultants. Sorry, but I'm betraying my profession here. Uh, the thing is, strategy, it's actually a Greek word, and my surname is a bit of a giveaway there, but it really means generalship, which doesn't translate very well, but it's more about the art of planning to engage in battle. Strategy in the case of businesses, you're battling a, I guess, entering a battlefield where you have
Mhm.
competition. You have a lot of things attacking you, preventing you from succeeding. But the more you premeditate the resources, the timing, the approach, the more likely you're going to succeed in your campaign. That's a simple way of describing strategy, and I'll give you a better anecdote in a second. But the tactics is, okay, so you've got your strategy, you've got your troops lined up, and then you go into battle, or then you go into business, but then suddenly the unexpected happens. Regulators introduce a new law that will impact your business.
Yeah.
A new competitor arrives. Customers find a fault in your product or service, and you have to deal with those. Those are the tactics. Everybody is a strategist, Jim. Everybody is a strategist. They just don't know it.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever just jumped on a bus or a taxi, gone to the airport and said to the check-in clerk, take me to my holiday?
Absolutely not.
I wouldn't think so. Yes, you can do that. It's going back to the planning. Do you need a plan or not? Yeah, you could probably do that and throw a wad of cash on the counter and end up somewhere, but it may not work.
Yeah.
There may not be a seat available. You'll certainly pay way, way, way more than you could have if you searched the market, looked at what was available. What is your goal? What do you want to do? Do you want to have a relaxing holiday, sipping pina coladas on the beach, sliding down a mountain on a pair of skis or a snowboard, looking at ancient ruins, or meeting up with family and friends? What is your goal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you need the right resources for that. You won't need your woolly pullover for your beach holiday, and you definitely won't need your snow boots, uh, and
Mm.
vice versa. It goes along with the resources as well. What is your budget? What do you intend to do? Who's going with you? So everybody knows how to plan a holiday,
Yeah.
and the conceptual framework for a business isn't hugely different. It just sounds scary, but it isn't. You just need to follow a process. And you'll find in business there are lots and lots of ways of doing things. And different consultants will say, yes, you need the 15 chapter business plan or the 10 or the 20 or whatever. It doesn't matter which template or version you use, but there are some core elements that should be included in your business plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start maybe just giving a very brief overview of what that should be, if you
Yeah.
like.
Go for it.
Okay,
Love it.
so I think in a lot of good business plans, it's always advisable to start up, okay, what is it you're selling? What product or service are you offering to your customers? Um, who is behind this organization? Who's the team? Who's behind it? What is your mission, vision, values? And the other one is, what is the market opportunity? And this is a really important one. It really comes down to what customer problem are you solving? This is often overlooked because you've got this great idea, but having a product or a service that solves a problem is key to the success of a business. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
And the other thing is looking at the competition. What is everyone else doing out there? Sometimes you may come up with a pure innovation. Nothing wrong with that. And there are no competitors. That's good and bad. It's good because that means you've got market leader advantage.
Hmm.
Disadvantage is you've got to educate the marketplace that your novel product or service
Is needed.
is desirable and needed, or even to understand it.
Mm.
And a lot of startups will struggle because that means you need to spend a lot more on your marketing and advertising and PR to A, educate the market, before B, you can compel them or persuade them to buy it.
Mm.
And that leads down to the next section of the business plan, which is your marketing and sales strategy. Who are you going to reach? How are you going to reach them? How are you going to persuade your customers to buy from you and not your competitors?
Yeah.
And I guess all of this activity ultimately needs a schedule or a plan with key milestones. So who's going to be doing what, by when? If you've got a team, you need to allocate tasks, set deadlines, execute. And execution of the plan is really the difference between having a good idea and having a successful business,
Yeah.
making it happen. And we touched on this before, but all of this requires funding. Where's the funding going to come from? How
Mm.
much cash is going in? And equally important, and possibly more important, is how much cash is going out.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, you really are putting your new enterprise in the peril of joining the 90% failure club.
Yeah. And I think where you're spending it as well, because often people think that they need to, rent out a plush office and things. Like, you can work from your garage, it's fine. Spend the money on your PR and get that narrative right. It's far more important.
Stole my thunder, Jim. Yep, absolutely. The number of startups that I've worked with, this is right, and I've looked at their plans. I said, right, well, we've already got an office earmarked, and it's in a lovely location. And I'm thinking, okay, all that cash you're burning
Mm.
on a location. Again, there's no hard and fast rules. Maybe there are some businesses where you need to have a physical presence and maybe a prestigious presence because it's
Hmm.
fundamental to your business offering. Okay, that makes sense. But if you're doing something that you don't need physical contact with your clients, you're absolutely right. Bedroom, garage, kitchen table, preferably a study, um, is good enough.
Yeah.
Really be selective about how you spend your funds. You want bang for buck. Now, there are those startups that might be fortunate enough to get funding. And people often casually throw out, yes, we're going to go and shop our business plan to VCs, venture capitalists. And I think a lot of this has come up out of the dot-com booms,
Yeah.
booms in plural. And now it will be the AI boom, which is the next frontier. And that's fine. But I think I'm not discouraging anyone from going for external investor funding, but nobody gets a free lunch.
Yeah.
And there's a cost associated with that, least of which is your equity, but you've also got control. There's another thing, and that is those who bootstrap, in other words, self-fund, and case studies and history tends to show that those entrepreneurs who fund their own enterprises tend to run leaner, tighter, and more profitable organizations because they know every buck counts.
Yeah. It's far easier
Whereas,
to spend someone else's money.
totally, and I've seen a lot of startups that have got those VC fundings, and some of those offices look like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Slides and just junk, free pizzas and unlimited soft drinks. And yeah, it's wonderful. Someone's pouring that money out into your hands and you're just squandering it. But then when things get lean, guess what happens? Out comes the firing squad, and then suddenly there's massive headcount cuts.
Yeah.
And you get this yo-yo experience because the leaders of that enterprise haven't really experienced running a business with tight cash flow and operating with the appropriate disciplines. Again, I'm not saying one is right, the other is wrong, or that it only works if you bootstrap, but there's a simple case study to reflect on. And certainly funding is an important element.
Yeah.
At the end of that, of course, is the summary. And I've left that at the end, but it's usually at the beginning of the document.
Yes.
Which just summarizes the entire content of your plan. And they call it an executive summary simply because usually executives will be reading it. But again, it depends on who's your audience. Sure, you write a business plan if you're going to seek funding. In fact, that's not optional. You will have to do that. But even if you're going to self-fund, I would still encourage startups to produce their own business plan.
Yeah.
Because it is your document, your business, your guidebook to get you to success and to help you navigate through and manage the challenges that you almost certainly inevitably will face.
What about evaluation?
Yeah. Peer review is really important. Try and get as many diverse views as possible in your plan. My experience is there's no such thing as a final draft.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You can do 20 versions and you think it's done, someone will spot something, and then you got 21, and on it goes. And that's fine. Keep refining it, keep improving it, but certainly Pareto principle should kick in. Hit a point where you think, right, this is 80%. It's good enough, get going. Things will change. As you deliver, as you execute, the challenges you will face will encourage you to review your plan and maybe update it. Views from your friends, colleagues, family will also influence and encourage you to change and adapt it accordingly. And market conditions will change as well. Technology will change.
Yeah, there's a fine line, isn't there, between sort of keep refining it and then it actually prevents you from going out and doing it. Because I think actually, I know writing a plan sounds scary, but when you come to actually doing it, that's the scary bit for me.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I think having the plan in place actually makes it a little bit less scary.
Yeah.
Because you've premeditated the journey. It's almost like previewing your holiday. You've done all the planning. You think, right, well, we're going to go to this sunny beach and, it's a nice 4-star hotel and we're going to go on this excursion. And you also have that mental picture of what it's going to be like. And then you hop on the aircraft, go to your destination. Most of it will be as you planned, but there'll be surprises here and there.
Yeah.
Some good, some maybe not so good, but you'll deal with those. But at least you've premeditated it.
Yeah, sounds good. So, given that some of our listeners will be wanting to start their own business, what advice would you give them?
I think having a good team is probably one of the key success factors for a business that is going to avoid the 90% club. Now, a lot of people won't have the luxury of a team. They're going to be solopreneurs working on their own, and that's fine. But if you can assemble a team, try and get a diverse team. Most of the startups I work with are technology focused. So you get a lot of PhDs, engineers, really, really bright guys and gals. And that's great. And they're amazing in terms of their ability to synthesize ideas and use technology to come up with innovation. But they're locked into a narrow pathway of thinking. It would be good to have in those teams somebody with some finance experience and skills, marketing, sales, business development, possibly somebody with some understanding of legal and regulatory issues. But I think if you were really, really tight on people and resources, I think finance, marketing, sales would be your absolute minimum to include in the team. And if you don't have those, try and acquire them. And back to the comment earlier, or get hold of a trusted, experienced mentor that can guide you and spot the areas where you need to put a little bit more emphasis or avoid the traps that could drag you down.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. Now you set me a challenge. You said bring a pen and paper for
Yeah,
this podcast.
right.
I've got it. I'm at the ready.
Good. So this might be a little bit cruel because normally I would do this exercise in a workshop where people have a little bit more time. So this is going to hit you cold, Jen.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you in a sentence, as succinctly as you can, describe your business.
Like an elevator pitch.
It's a bit like an elevator pitch, but this is the one sentence description of Jem's business.
Okay. So communications is my business, and I think a lot of people think that that's just a poster or like a newsletter, but actually it's about your personal presence, it's about influencing techniques, it's negotiating, and that ability to challenge and presenting skills. Oh, that was bad.
It's pretty good,
It was
actually.
longer than a sentence. It was a short paragraph.
It's longer than a sentence, and it's okay because most people would do something similar. In fact, the hardest thing to do is speak or write succinctly. It's easy to write pages and pages and talk for hours and hours, or even minutes. Cutting a one sentence description of your business is challenging for pretty much everybody. But here's the thing. I'll give you a hack that will allow you to do it very simply, very quickly, by just answering 5 questions. Okay, and these are easy questions.
Okay.
So this is why you need your pen and paper.
Yeah. I'm
First
ready.
question is, what is your business name?
Okay.
And you write that down.
Yeah.
And the next question is, what do you sell? Okay, what is it that you sell?
Okay.
Product or a service? Third question is, who do you sell to? Who are your customers?
Yep.
And now we come to another important question that you need to answer is, and I addressed this earlier, is what customer problem do you solve, or what goal do you help them achieve? It's the customer problem
Okay.
solution mix.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
And the
Yeah.
last question, which addresses the competition, which is what makes you different? What makes your business different to the
Okay.
competition?
Okay. All right.
So
If this goes
those
horribly wrong, I'm not going to include it in the edit.
so now you've got the answers to those 5 questions, and if you blend them together, that
Yeah.
will give you a real neat, sharp, and succinct description of your business. Go
Can I
for
read
it,
it to you? Okay.
please. Yeah.
So my business is Business Unzipped, and I offer free advice to entrepreneurs and small business owners, teaching you effective communication in an open and personal way.
Wow. Fast learner. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. That was amazing. That was the best hack.
So
That
that's
was a sentence.
yeah, and it's not so hard. But I think the whole thing about conducting businesses, there are a lot of resources out there that can help fast track a lot of the challenges you face, because for many people they're doing it for the first time. But the good news is a lot of people have done it before you, and yep, you could discover it yourself, but you'll have such a huge advantage by researching or getting advice from a mentor that can help you overcome some of those challenges, find simple techniques, hacks
Yeah.
that will allow you to overcome difficult challenges.
Yeah.
This is an easy one, the one sentence description.
Which is great because it's so needed. When someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" I'd be fumbling for like 20 minutes explaining every single detail and they'd lose interest straight away. But that's so clear and concise. And you could Yeah, just say that almost in passing, and people go, "Oh, nice."
Well, it's not just startups. Ask a lot of people in big government and big corporate enterprises.
Mm.
Often people just do stuff, but they don't really understand what it is, how to describe it. Corporations spend a lot of money on consultants developing their mission, vision statements, which are great. Um, but oftentimes it just gets trapped in the boardroom. Maybe there'll be plaques or posters around the organization, but a lot of employees just don't relate to it, don't see it.
Yeah.
But I think that the 5 question, 1 sentence business description is a neat, simple, and easy way to give you focus, but probably equally importantly, if not more importantly, is to help the stakeholder that you're discussing this with, whether it be a customer, a supplier, or an investor, exactly what it is you do.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was so cool. I loved that. Any closing words for our listeners, Don?
Wow. Um, I would definitely encourage people to do research. The good thing is there is so much information available to you that there's no excuse for what I would call ignorance, business ignorance. It's all available to you now, but with a bit of caution. Um, there's probably too much information. So being able to isolate which is the source of truth is getting harder. Artificial intelligence is, I think, making it a little bit harder too, because it comes across so polished. You don't really know, is it accurate? Is it correct?
Yeah.
And again, I think do your own primary research or secondary research yourself, but seeking the advice of others, especially those that have done it before. Um, I couldn't recommend that enough.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Been a real pleasure, Jen. Thank you.